election, and agreeing on the message is an absolute condition to unite forces and change policies on both local, national, and European level. Knowledge is key to that. With this knowledge, we can keep building on solutions. We also learned we need to engage all the stakeholders and relevant sectors, also the unlikely ones, and involve the homeless people and ex-homeless people. And above all, as we just heard, we need political will. Good data are important for that, as is storytelling, adding a face to the data. Of that, we saw some fine examples of storytelling from Braga and Ghent. Our URBACT lead expert, Liat Rogel, will now give a recap of the winter school, which we then will discuss with Freek Spinnewijn from FEANTSA and with Bailie Christie from the Social Affairs Forum of Eurocities. Liat, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Patricia, and thank you everybody for being here. My name is Liat Rogel, and I'm the lead expert of the Roof Network. Many of you know me. My role is really to bring this group of cities and group of people together and to work so that this exchange is actually valuable and useful for everybody. So at this time, I think a lot of what would happen if we'd have the opportunity and the possibility to actually meet each other and be together. And so I would like to ask one more time to see your faces with the cameras. And I will give you this summary. I will give you my small word here at the end of the school, but I don't wish to do it so much as a speaker, but as the person that really moderates a conversation between people. I do enjoy seeing your faces. So a year ago, a little bit more than a year ago, it was the middle of February, we were in Ghent, and the representatives of the city of the Roof Network, we were in Ghent. And we ended the phase 1 of the project and started phase 2. And at that time, Patricia and I, we visited most of the cities now active in the Roof Network. And during the meeting, we wished ourselves some things that we would like to do. We talked about the opportunities that we have together as a group. And I think now we are 1 year after this meeting in Ghent, and I can really see how these opportunities are taking place and how are we using our group to actually move forward towards ending homelessness. I see a group of cities that is creating an alliance to decide that they don't want to manage anymore homelessness, but they want to end it, that housing is a human right, and that social inclusion is at the heart of each city. I think the 3 days that we just spent together with the local groups, so not only us people that meet each other every once in a while, but also people that come directly from the social services, from the housing services, were really here with us to do that. This is a very big step to go ahead. And this kind of involvement is the kind of involvement that we would also like to see. We started these 3 days with a promising political commitment. We had 3 political representatives from 3 of our cities, Thessaloniki, Toulouse Metropole, and of course our host, Braga. And we also heard about a national plan for Portugal. It was very important for us to open with this commitment and to hear about it and to hear about how the wish for social inclusion is based on the collaboration with local stakeholders. So this opening gave us the ideas that social inclusion and the right to housing were the umbrella terms to push roof partners and to push the roof cities towards ending homelessness. We then heard Freek from FEANTSA, which is also here with us today. It's the closing session. And his opening and the basics to Housing First were crucial to understand that when we talk about Housing First, we're not talking about a project. We are talking about a system, and we're talking about creating a change in the system. And this reinforces even more the view that everyone should be on board and everyone should understand where are we going at with Housing First. The next few sessions were all about that. We're all about alliances. We heard Carlos explaining us how to creatively involve stakeholders that usually we do not involve, and how powerful it could be to speak with people that usually tend to be outside. These could be the homeless people themselves or ex-homelessness, but honestly, we just heard it also at the last talk, it could also be the housing sector. In many of the cities that we visited, somehow the housing sector remained disconnected from the conversation about homelessness. So how to involve people, and from Anne's lecture about the National Alliance, we understood what happened when you do it on a national level. And she had a really nice way to say that. She said, it is a long-term engagement, but we are working on the engine. So we are improving the engine and not so much thinking in terms of the results. She did say that there is an engagement through short-term project within a long-term engagement, which I think is really important for our cities, because many of our cities in roof right now are also frustrated by the lack of a national support. And if we don't have a national support, we may also tend to stop and not do anything and say we can't move ahead because we don't have a national support. And this is where I think we need to understand also our role and sometimes our power as a city administration to start the activity and to be able by actions to advocate and to move forward. And of course, I wish that the collaboration between the roof cities would also help in the creation of national support or pushing towards national support. We followed this introduction about the alliance and the collaboration with Claire's presentation about scaling up Housing First. And we learned about the pathway to housing that allowed to speed up a little bit the process to Housing First in Scotland and in Glasgow especially, which is really on a very good scale and a very good level. And we're very happy to learn from this experience in our network. And we also heard the word making the conversation national helped us. But on the other hand, Claire spoke about a design thinking approach, which means learning by doing. We don't know exactly how things are going to work. We are evaluating our actions as we go. And we try it in our specific context, because what happened and what succeeded in one place, in Norway, in Denmark, not necessarily would work in our context. We need to understand our culture. We need to understand our history. We need to understand our actual ability to guarantee housing or support. So this idea of evaluating as we go came very strong from her conversation. Today, my feeling was that we really moved into the hands of many of the people that actually work on the field. So Peter Rang gave us a peek to what is happening when you work with people and what happened when you work in Housing First, and the support is a choice of the user. And then as a support giver, you are requested to have a flexibility and to have the ability to really go back to the context. What is the specific need? So we had some question about, what about women homeless? What about people that, the immigrants that come from different culture? And the answer was always, I'd try to understand, I try to empathize with the user to understand if this is something important, and then my support answer will go in that direction. And then we had the opportunity to hear from Ghent, Toulouse, and Glasgow how the support system works in their local context, and what did they adapt, and what are the challenges and the difficulties, which of course we all have still at this point. So for me, it was really to go deep into the user, into the social worker work, and understanding the complexity and also the beauty of this work. This actually connects to our last class about data, because to understand really the user of the service or the situation in the city, the collection of data is of course very, very useful. And the question that we have to ask, why are we collecting this data? What do we want to do with this data? Are we going to use it to advocate? Are we going to use it to improve our service design? And to do that, we know which methods to use and where to go. It was also very interesting to know that with Ethos Light that we are working in with the roof network, started small, but is actually spreading a lot. It gives us the hope that we can actually speak the same language. This was said as well during this class, how we can really understand each other and improve the collaboration, because now we have the same kind of terminology, we have the same kind of idea in our mind. If I have to sum it up in some phrases, I would say housing first, of course, is a systemic approach. To change the system, we need a very strong alliance between relevant stakeholders, which are not always the obvious or the usual suspects. There is a need for national support. And from the bottom up, the city administration has a role in acting and activating housing first as a way to push forward a change in mindset and to push forward a change in policies. We saw that the roof city members shared some frustrations along the way. We collected them, we talked about the frustration, expressed them out loud. And I think maybe the main ones were about housing availability and the political national lack of support. We still need to engage the housing sector. We still need to work on a national level. And we are here today to say that being part of a city network, of the roof network, means that you are stronger than being alone. It means that you can be inspired by another city, but you could actually call another city to your city to speak about things that are being done together. The integration between sectors within the public administration, but also the collaboration between cities, it's at the heart of an URBACT project. In 1 year, all the cities of the roof network will be asked to produce an integrated action plan. It's more and more clear for me how the cities could do that. So to think about who are you going to write your plan with, and many of them are here today with us and were here with us during the 3 days, and what is going to be in the plans. And before that year, in this year, we have the opportunity, the occasion to go ahead with what we call small-scale actions. So each of the cities requested to think about what is it that you could do now on a small budget and on a short time that will help you to create a better long-term engagement, long-term change. When I explained it to the Roof Network, I say, you think like a lion, but you act like a cat. So we start now, and this is our next step with the Roof Network. And so I end in saying, I am very pleased and very happy to have had the URBACT local groups here with us. I wish for you, and I said it yesterday, but I would like to repeat it. I wish for you to continue and feel that you are part of the Roof project, all of you, and take advantage of the Roof Network to push forward your local, national, and hopefully also European policies to end homelessness. Thank you from me, and happy to be here and have you with me.
Thank you, Liat. It's a lovely summary of everything that we did over the past few days and what we will do with it, and what the ULGs can do on their level. Freek is also with us, Freek from FEANTSA. Freek, how would you care to respond to Liat's overview?
Well, good afternoon, everybody, and nice to be with you again. A lot has happened actually since the first day of the winter school and today, but I'll come back to that in a minute. Yes, I agree with, overall, I agree with what was said, and it seems that the 3 days were interesting enough for all the participants. But let me just say with what I agree most. Liat said that local authorities can only be really performant within a national framework, and I think that's true. We see that in most countries. A national framework is necessary for many reasons. One of the reasons is, of course, to make sure that there is sufficient funding available for local authorities to address the problem, also to address homelessness in an effective way, because some of the levers to address homelessness are at regional and national level still, especially in the area of prevention, for instance. So I think that's definitely something, and I hear it very rarely from local authorities say we need a national framework to operate under. I think the danger or the worry is that it might actually be seen as admitting weakness from the local level, but I don't think that's the case. I think it's showing interest and strength and motivation to do something about it, but it's just a reality that the national framework helps to be more performant. That's the first thing. The second thing is, indeed, we are in many countries struggling. Like, we all know that Housing First works. The evidence is overwhelming. We don't have to produce much more evidence. We probably need more evidence on specificities about Housing First, if it works for other target groups than the original target group, if we can innovate in social support, etc. But that Housing First as an approach works. I don't think we need more evidence for that. But I think the challenge is to bring it to scale. And that's something that is, of course, felt by local authorities. There is a risk, really, that Housing First remains a project that is added to everything else that exists, and you need to bring it to scale to have the systemic transformation of the way we do policies. And I think we would be fooling ourselves if we said that that transition from a staircase model to a Housing First model is cheap. It's not cheap. It might be cheaper in the long run, but you need extra funding to make the transition. And maybe the EU can help there. There is unprecedented opportunities to use budgets, funds like grants, and financing opportunities at the EU level. Maybe we have to look into that a little bit more into detail. A very quick comment. I hear many people saying, yes, what about this? What about that? I know of somebody for whom Housing First or another approach has not worked. I would like to do a general call to simplify the problem rather than to complexify the problem. If you want to make progress, you start with simplifying, and then there will be plenty of time afterwards to complexify the problem. But let's start with simplifying. I think the reason why the Finnish approach has been so successful is that. They simplify the problem rather than to complexify it. Everybody can think of an exception, but let's work on the base of the rule rather than on the base of the exception. Yes, the housing sector, like we need to get the housing sector more closely involved. We all know that the easiest way, and easiest between brackets, the easiest way for homeless people to get into housing is social housing. But there is too often still skepticism, sometimes even resistance from social housing sector to do more in relation to homelessness, to allocate more social housing to homeless people, sometimes for valid reasons, very often for less valid reasons. But I think we have to get the housing sector more closely involved in homelessness work. And then the last thing that I would like to say is that we have a tendency to focus on big cities when we talk about homelessness, and it's true that homelessness is an issue, especially in big urban areas, but it's also an issue in smaller cities, and it has become more visible in many countries, in smaller cities as well. But I don't want to pitch it as a negative thing. We see also more interest from policymakers and mobilization at policy level in small cities to do something about it, and we have to also help these cities to be effective in their effort. So this is an appeal to actually reach out to cities with 200,000 inhabitants and less, to help them also to do good work on homelessness. And what is interesting about the smaller cities is that they can solve homelessness in a relatively short time. The problem is still manageable. The numbers are still not so high. So you can much more quickly get to a situation that we would call functional zero solution to homelessness. That's my initial thoughts. There is, of course, EU momentum. I said in the beginning of my intervention that yesterday, I think it was yesterday, yes, the European Commission launched its long-awaited EU action plan for the pillar of social rights, which lists all the actions that the European Commission plans to take in the next 4 years, and probably longer, but definitely for the next 4 years. And one of them is the launch of an EU collaboration platform on homelessness, which they now call the EU Platform on Homelessness. I think it's still about collaboration, but they dropped the collaboration from the title. Makes it easier to speak about it. It's unclear still what it is, but the fact that it is something with great potential is clear. So also there, I think we should join forces, local authorities together with FEANTSA, to actually make something useful out of that initiative with the European Commission. Voilà.
Maybe on that note, can you give an idea of what the plans of FEANTSA are for the future? What you will be focusing on?
You mean in general, or in relation to the collaboration platform?
Both.
But in FEANTSA, we maybe first in relation to the collaboration platform, we are really planning in the next couple of months to help the European Commission to develop a proposal for a collaboration platform that is of real added value for the policymakers and other stakeholders that try to address and address homelessness and reduce the number of homeless people. So I think the next 3 months will be absolutely crucial. The platform will be launched on the 21st of June at a high-level conference in Lisbon. And my assumption is that by then, some kind of a proposal will be presented. Otherwise, it will be very difficult to get the member states to sign up to it. So that's certainly a priority for the immediate future. For the longer-term future, there is many topics that FEANTSA will be focusing on. Housing First is definitely one of them. You all know that we have set up together with our member Y Foundation in Finland what we call the Housing First Europe Hub, which is a training and knowledge platform on Housing First. We're definitely going to invest more time and energy into that, because the interest in Housing First is growing exponentially, and we have to we struggle to actually deliver on the requests that come to us. So housing first will definitely be an important priority. And then for the rest, we will continue to working in 3 big areas. The area of migration, the area of housing, and the area of health. And especially in the area of health, we think that we have to step up our efforts. The link between homelessness and health has always been obvious, but it has become even more obvious because of the pandemic. And there is a lot of progress that we can still make. There is like a wall between the social care and the health sectors. We have to try to break these walls and enhance cooperation, like there is walls between the housing and the homeless sector, but probably smaller walls between the housing and the homeless sector than there is between the health and the homeless sector. So these are some of the priorities, but it's a lot. It would drive us too far if I would go into further detail, I think.
Yes, you were talking about the European presidency. We have our host Braga, who's Portuguese. The Portuguese presidency. I was wondering what you feel that how ROOF can make a contribution to that presidency, to the social aspect, and to ending homelessness.
Well, maybe you can. I don't know. I'm just thinking aloud, making known to the European Commission what ROOF thinks would be useful from such a platform. What you think such a platform, collaboration platform, could do that would benefit your daily work, that would already be useful. But in more of a campaigning or a political sense, one of the things that we felt when we were reading the action plan for the pillar that the Commission launched yesterday was that it almost seemed as if the European Commission was willing to integrate a target on homelessness. There is 3 targets. One target is related to poverty. There is a sub-target on child poverty. And the document reads as if they wanted to also add the target on homelessness, but didn't dare to do it in the end. Now, we have time between now and the social summit in Porto, where the action plan will be endorsed, I guess, by the Council and the Parliament and the Commission together, to maybe push for a target on homelessness. That would be quite nice to have. Whether it's realistic to end homelessness by 2030, that's another question. But as, in terms of a political message, it could be quite useful and help to underpin the dynamic that we want to get with the collaboration platform. So I think the Commission is very interested to know your ideas of what you want from the platform, and probably want to team up with us to have a little campaign on a possible EU target on homelessness.
Yes, that's what we're planning. We're planning to do advocacy, but especially we want to use the data of our network and use them to see what problems we encounter. And we want to look at what Europe could do that would benefit the cities. It's very important that all the ULG members who are here present, that they can have benefit from things that Europe does on ending homelessness. So it's not too high level. So thank you, Freek, for your contribution. And I would like to ask now Bailie Christie. She's the Vice President of the Social Affairs Forum of Eurocities. And I would like her to come forward and to give her take on things.
Thank you, and good afternoon, everyone. It is a pleasure on behalf of the Eurocities Social Affairs Forum as the Vice Chair. Glasgow was recently elected to this position, and I'm very proud to support the leadership of Utrecht as the Chair in taking it forward. And firstly, I would like to take the opportunity to thank Braga as the host city of the ROOF Winter School. The Glasgow representatives, who most of them are on the call today, have informed me that the last few days have been full of inspirational learning and exchange. And as Adele from URBACT said at the start of the winter school, URBACT may not have a lot of money, but collectively URBACT cities have big ideas. And I know that as we all work together, URBACT, Eurocities and other national and transnational bodies, our collective impact could change the lives of so many people. For those who aren't familiar with Eurocities, it is a network of over 190 cities in 39 countries, representing 130 million people. Now, thankfully, Glasgow, as a city who voted decisively against Brexit, very decisively, EU membership is not a criteria to be a Eurocities member, because Eurocities is much bigger than politics. It's about policy, good practice, and as my city, which knows that people make Glasgow our motto, I can tell you that Eurocities also knows we are nothing without our citizens. Our mission at Eurocities is to strive for a Europe where cities are genuine partners with the EU and other European institutions to create a better future. Through joint working, knowledge sharing and coordinated Europe-wide activity, we ensure that cities and their people are heard in Europe. Now, the Social Affairs Forum is one of several strategic fora led by a range of cities who are committed to sharing knowledge, skills, and our collective strength to identify innovative solutions and creative transformational change in a number of areas such as environment, mobility, knowledge society and economic development, and culture. Underneath these are a range of standing working groups and task forces, all working to strategic objectives and goals, which are designed to support cross-cutting work that breaks down silo mentalities. And a key strategic objective is that people take part in an inclusive society, inclusive cities for all, we say. And ROOF members will know that if you are homeless or live under the threat of losing the roof over your head, then your ability to participate or be an active member in an inclusive society is compromised. This is why a key goal supporting this outcome of inclusion is to ensure access to adequate and affordable housing. So how does Eurocities achieve this? The Social Affairs Forum is a place for exchanging experiences and mutual learning. Our city policymakers learn from each other by sharing knowledge, comparing different approaches, testing innovative solutions, and identifying best practices. Alongside the capacity building advantages for cities, these activities also provide an informed and inclusive basis for developing Eurocities policy inputs to EU policy making. The Mutual Learning Programme is carefully designed to encourage cities' participation and involvement, as well as to produce an impact. And it features two main methodologies, leading to the implementation of innovative policies and policy exchange. And those methodologies are policy transfer and critical friend review. Both of these methods I know are very familiar to our URBACT cities, and much of the past 3 days has been how we can share our knowledge, expertise, and provide peer support to ending homelessness. Two working groups relevant to the ROOF project collectively focus on the goal of ensuring access to adequate and affordable housing. Our working group on housing and the working group on homelessness, which Glasgow also chairs. Access to adequate and affordable housing should be a fundamental right for all. Yet across Europe, we still face a housing crisis in our cities, which creates new forms of inequality and contributes to the most extreme form of poverty, homelessness. Now, local authorities play a central role in delivering housing support, and cities have long been at the forefront of improving access to adequate and affordable housing. Many cities are committed to ensuring long-term investment in housing and integrated measures to end homelessness, as well as experimenting with new housing models to promote social cohesion and social mix through urban planning. However, current regulations on the housing market and the digital platform economy aggravate housing exclusion in our cities, leading to gentrification. And cities look to the EU to invest and increase the stock of public social housing and to hold responsible private housing developers, encourage innovation with new forms of co-housing in public and private partnerships. The Eurocities Social Affairs Forum working groups worked jointly on a report published last November 2020. It was entitled Access to Affordable and Social Housing and Support to Homeless People. And it found that access to adequate housing and eradicating homelessness are crucial urban challenges. Falling income, precarious work contracts, increasing costs of rents, decreasing investments in social infrastructure create pressure on social housing. And likewise, upward trends in urban poverty, unemployment, migration, people with mental health and substance abuse issues are also influencing the overall number of homelessness. But it's not only vulnerable people that are struggling. Recent trends such as mass and unregulated tourism, precarious work contracts, and the lack of affordable housing is increasingly affecting the middle income class, putting this group at risk of poverty and social exclusion too. Now, cities already play a big role in social housing policies, although this is most often a shared competence with other levels of government. Some of the key roles currently carried out by city authorities include measures to prevent eviction and homelessness and targeted measures to help the most vulnerable people access social housing. Almost all our cities implement actions to reintegrate homeless people into independent living. A shift from housing management to a housing first approach, as we know, has been mentioned by many cities over the last few days, and it's the great majority of cities who have housing provided upfront to homeless people without the need to go through any emergency measures first. And across Europe, there is a severe lack of affordable rental housing, and rents are increasing. Most cities aim at increasing the housing stock and provide housing subsidies to people. And cities also have local strategies on housing, and they can provide integrated services to support those in need. The Access to Affordable and Social Housing report produced by Eurocities has 4 key recommendations. Firstly, set up an EU framework to support local and national strategies to fight homelessness. Secondly, promote integrated approaches to support homeless people. And we know through ROOF that the promotion of Housing First does exactly this. Thirdly, reinforce preventative support. A strong focus on preventive approaches is essential in the fight against homelessness and should include those at highest risks, such as migrants, people leaving institutions, or those in debt. And as we heard from Ricardo Rio, the mayor of Braga at the start of the winter school, health, mental health, migration and housing are intrinsically linked. And our 4th recommendation was support capacity building of cities on data collection and monitoring of homelessness. Precise, regular data collection at local level allows for better targeted measures and support. And better evidence creates better policies, which we have seen the focus of many of the speakers during this week's winter school. The Eurocities report was considered by the Employment Committee of the European Parliament in early December last year, and I'm happy to say that many of our contributions have been taken on board, but it doesn't stop there. People are still homeless in Europe, and we know there's so much more to be done. The Portuguese presidency of the Council of the EU announced that they will hold a high-level conference to launch a European platform to end homelessness on the 21st of June 2021. Now, this platform should facilitate political dialogue between EU institutions, member states, and other stakeholders, including our cities, to create a common understanding of the topic and situation, and making a strong commitment to combat homelessness, including through a declaration to induce concrete progress. A Eurocities political initiative, Inclusive Cities for All, kicked off in 2019, with 21 cities presenting pledges at the European Parliament, acting on the principles of the European Pillar of Social Rights. Glasgow made its first pledge on Pillar 19, housing and homelessness, and since then, 18 other cities have also pledged regarding housing and assistance for the homeless. From Athens to Zaragoza, collectively, all these cities have invested €4.3 billion in more affordable housing and created 3,500 new Housing First and other housing for the homeless. And Glasgow, my city, played its parts too. In 2021, we developed the multi-agency Housing First Rapid Rehousing Transition Plan, targeting those homeless individuals with multiple and complex needs. And we followed that up by modernising the delivery of homelessness services in the city by bringing together the Glasgow Alliance to End Homelessness, worth more than £187 million over a maximum of a 10-year period. This alliance is a partnership between agencies in Glasgow, all working to transform the planning, design and delivery of homeless services in the city. Inclusive Cities for All is an initiative, and it has gone from strength to strength, with even more cities showing their commitment to a more cohesive and inclusive Europe. And over the last year, Eurocities collected another 63 city pledges to the European Pillar of Social Rights, totaling over 14.5 billion in social investment measures in cities. Eurocities has ensured that European institutions and decision makers know that cities are playing their part, and we expect them to do so too. Working with URBACT networks like ROOF only makes that advocacy work stronger and more effectively. And with the launch of the action plan for the European Pillar of Social Rights yesterday, future collaboration between cities is ever more apparent. And as we know, May, Portugal will host the EU Social Summit in Porto. And at the first one in Gothenburg in 2017, the urban voice was missing. But as we've seen over the last year, cities have been on the front lines managing the social impacts of COVID-19. And they will be crucial for ensuring that no one is left behind in the recovery efforts in the coming months and years. And as my colleague, Martin van Ooyen, the Deputy Mayor of Utrecht and Chair of Eurocities Social Affairs Forum, has said, without the quick actions of our city councils, many more people across Europe would be facing poverty and the recession would be even deeper. So Eurocities is calling out for action. And we want a formal recognition at EU level of the city's role in developing and implementing social policy. Indeed, a recent European Parliament report acknowledged the role of local government as key partners to be involved in the development of the just transition plans as we move forward out of the pandemic. However, given the essential roles of cities, the European Parliament must still do more to engage cities as key partners in the governance of EU social policies, including with a recognised role at the EU Social Summit in May. And this is why the learning of the URBACT Roof project is so important. Networks, when they work together, can achieve. And we are seeing the fruits of that already in Glasgow. Mindsets are changing by the creative use of data, not just playing around with the facts, but to tell the stories, the real stories, gathering qualitative information as well as quantitative, and using a design-led co-creation approach to end homelessness. And I'm hugely excited about what I've heard and seen in my own city at a neighbourhood level, using a place-based approach that's closer to home with local partners to create an ecosystem of prevention. And it's that kind of creativity, that kind of coalition of the willing that will make a difference. Now, Eurocities membership is only open to cities with a population of at least 250,000 inhabitants. But as Glasgow has demonstrated, you may even be dragged out of the European Union, but you still have a voice, and so do the smaller cities. Now, if you know anything about Glasgow, and I'm sure you do through the Roof project, I'm sure you'll know that you cannot shut us up. We Scots will not only raise the roof, we will bring the house down. And my message to you from Eurocities is you don't have to be big, just think big, but be authentic and ensure that you are listening to your people and co-creating with them. Much can be achieved at a local level. We all know the importance of this recently, as most of us have sat at home during lockdown restrictions, just longing to go beyond the end of our street. And even when a trip to a local park seemed like a trip to the moon. But those of us who have been sitting at home, we are the lucky ones. We have a home. And COVID-19 has shown us that we must provide shelter and prevent homelessness. And we can, we must. Housing first is not a project. Housing first is not a policy. Housing first is a right. So thank you for inviting me, and thank you to Braga, URBACT, and all of you for a very successful winter school.
Thank you, Bailie, Christie, for such lovely words and such an interesting speech. I care to think what Freek and Liat think of what you just said. Freek?
I think I agree with what has said. I'm not going to repeat it because it was said better than I can say it. But maybe I can just add something that I forgot to say earlier on. Of course, we will work on COVID and the after COVID period. Like that's of course also a priority for FEANTSA. We're actually at the moment preparing some kind of a campaign to make sure that we sustain the progress that has been made during COVID. I think there is, it might be small gains, but important gains, and in our view, low-hanging fruit. Like I give you one example. During COVID, in many countries and in many cities, the night-only shelters became 24/7 shelters. Like it is not unthinkable that they will go back to night-only shelters after COVID. Why can we not maybe together call for having 24/7 shelters as the absolute minimum, or lots of shelters have decreased the number of people that they keep in the shelter to allow social distancing and have more people on individual rooms. Why can we not sort of try to sustain after COVID the end of dormitories, you know, like that. So we'll keep you in the loop, but I think in relation to COVID and the immediate after COVID period, there is some quick wins that can be made. Of course, the longer term is housing first and housing led and systemic changes, etc. But let's not forget the things that we can do in the very short term. And maybe also to say 2 words about FEANTSA, because the previous speaker was ending with like the reference to the coalition of the willing, etc. Actually, what FEANTSA is like what we want to become is a coalition of the willing. You know, we started off as an organization that was, you could say, the trade union of the shelter sector, but that's a long history. Like it's long past. That was 30 years ago. I think we're transforming ourselves rapidly in a movement of all relevant stakeholders that are involved in the fight against homelessness. And local authorities make part of that. And since we are at European level the only organization that exclusively focuses on homelessness, I would do an appeal to all of you to try to join forces with FEANTSA. If you can, to even become member of FEANTSA, I think together we can have a real impact and use the political momentum at EU level to the best of its potential. That's what I wanted to add still. Thank you.
Thank you, Freek. Liat, what would URBACT say?
I think for URBACT to work on such a specific topic like homelessness, and within homelessness, housing first, is a very good thing. It's quite new for URBACT. Many of the URBACT projects look at much wider terminologies. And I think that for URBACT, this is a way to go ahead. Also in future projects, to think that they could be specific, because this means that also the small cities that you were mentioning before, both of you actually, can actually make a difference, because again, it is different for a small city to remain alone, and it's a difference for a small city to enter and to become a part of the network. And as the URBACT methods is about integrated action plan, collaboration, dissemination, advocacy of results, then what I see here and what I hear is a way to think about network of networks. No, so we have many things going on. We see FEANTSA is a network, Eurocities is a network, URBACT is a network, and then we see many of our cities collaborate differently in these networks. And I think it's both a collective intelligence that we are building, but we're also building collective actions. So for example, coming back to what Freek just said, we are in a time of crisis, and if we take advantage of this time of crisis and we take advantage of the fact that we are already planning positive ways to go out of the situation of homelessness, then now it's the time to show that that alternatives do exist and that we're wishing to go there. I can add examples actually from the roof network to what Freek just said. So we had networks that for the first time allowed couples to stay in a private room, and they didn't have this opportunity. Or we had a city like Timișoara that doesn't have usually places and managed to have, yes, temporary houses, but for the first time a house to give to people to stay in. So I think that for URBACT, the roof network is really a way to show that this is not only about writing plans, but it's actually about acting together. And Patricia, I would like to ask for our participant, if you don't mind,
Yes,
for something.
Be my guest.
So it has been really dense 3 days, and this is going to be a difficult question. I'm not going to launch a poll again about how things was, but I want to ask you to write in the chat if you had to say what is the main one message that you take away from the 3 days, what would it be? And if we can write it in the chat, you can write in your own language, no problem, we will manage that afterwards. And we just take about 2 minutes and we write the one message that we take away from these 3 days. Teamwork, collaboration, common direction, importance of networking, the housing sector. Now it will become more difficult for me to read, but it's good. Cooperation, collaboration to change a system, joint working, political will, absolutely, cooperation. Give you some more seconds to do that and write in what's the main message that you're taking away from these 3 days. We're going where we planned to go. This is also not so obvious that you actually go where you planned to. Common commitment. The importance of partnerships. Yes, I think this was very strong. Alliance, and it's not only strong because of the people that we asked to call, but because it came about in every of the classes. Of course, the class about alliance or stakeholder involvement was about that, but we heard it also today when we were talking about data and we were talking about support. The cooperation was very strong. Think big, be local. Data and co-design. Patricia, of course.
Actually, that's Bailie Christie. She signed in under my name.
Okay. It could have fit you.
Yes. I knew.
So thank you very much for your answers. That would be it for me, Patricia.
Okay. Thank you, Liat. Thank you, Freek. Thank you, Bailie Christie, for your inspiring words. I think the Roof Network has a lot to think about and a lot to build on. I think we have a bit of a Roof Winter School Alliance here going on. The Roof Network will definitely get back to you with all the information of the school afterwards, and with our European advocacy plans and our action planning. And in 2022, we will bring you all our results. Now, I would like to call the whole behind the scenes roof team to come to the front. Liat will pin you, I think. So first,
I will try, yeah.
Liat Rogel, our fantastic lead expert from URBACT.
Thank you.
Luisa Braga Campos, who did all the website and all the technical stuff.
Thank you.
Stevie McGowan, who did all the reporting. Ewan, who also did reporting and tweets, and Hannah Laura, who did the storytelling and also reporting. Together, they did great things. Big thank you for all your efforts. I think we can genuinely say you made the winter school a success. Also, thanks to all the roof cities and their ULG coordinators for their contribution, and especially to Toulouse, Métropole, and Thessaloniki for their support. Thank you to all the inspiring speakers, both politicians, trainers, URBACT, Eurocities, Social Affairs Forum, and to the so patient interpreters who did a great job regardless of our accents. Last but not at all least, sinceros agradecimentos ao Braga team, Anna, António, and Claudia, for welcoming us into your lovely city and showing us how social innovation can be a motor to make the shifts towards housing first. How together with all stakeholders, you are on your way to ending homelessness. We all wish we could go now to a cafe together and have some tasty Portuguese wine and some nata. That day will certainly come. In the meantime, Braga team, thank you for saying our last roof winter school goodbyes. Anna.
Bem, well, we have reached the end of our fantastic program. On behalf of the Mayor Ricardo Rio, of Claudia, António, and myself, I would like to greet everyone who was present during these 3 days. We would like to be with you in person, to have you in our city, but the circumstances have determined an online model which brought together several countries, several people. Thanks to incredible effort and many hours of work by a dedicated, committed, and super professional team. Our thanks to you all.
António?
We had the pleasure to hear sharing experiences from Portugal, Denmark, Scotland, and Belgium. It was with great pleasure that we saw the various ULG members get involved and sharing many moments, experiences, frustrations, and success. We received great lessons from our speakers with very interesting approach and clues to do more and better. It was possible to see that, despite the difference, we choose to have a common direction.
We have the presence of political representatives from Braga, Thessaloniki, and Toulouse Metropole, experts from the URBACT program, representatives from FEANTSA, European Observatory on Homelessness, and Social Affairs Forum from Eurocities. We are very happy with what we have achieved, knowing that there is a lot to do, much to do, but with the certainty that this joint work is to continue and to replicate good practices, united by strong ties that will allow us to make an alignment of strategies with the objective of realizing the principles of the roof project. To officially close the roof winter school in Braga, we will share a moment that fills us of joy. It is a song dedicated to the city of Braga. It was composed by an interpreter, composed and interpreted by a Brazilian teacher and musician who 4 years ago found his home right here in Braga. His name is Claudio Cacau, and the song is called Braga City of Sounds. Stay safe. See you soon at the European Best Destination 2021, Braga. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
torres, igrejas e cores, cidade dos sons e de muitos amores. As muralhas estão no passado, hoje lado a lado caminham pessoas tão diferentes. Tantos sonhos, tanta paz, tanta fé no olhar dessa gente. Eu tomo mais um café no caminho da Sé, há um violino a tocar. Com esse toque de pura magia, ganhei mais um dia encontrando pessoas tão diferentes. Tantos sonhos, tanta paz, tanta fé no olhar dessa gente. Até ao bom Jesus eu vou subir, vou olhar a cidade do Sameiro, me reconstruir. Vou pelas ruas, vou ouvindo sons que só em Braga descobri. Igrejas e cores, cidade dos sons e de muitos amores. As muralhas estão no passado, hoje lado a lado caminham pessoas tão diferentes. Tantos sonhos, tanta paz, tanta fé no olhar dessa gente. Eu tomo mais um café no caminho da Sé, há um violino a tocar. Com esse toque de pura magia, ganhei mais um dia encontrando pessoas tão diferentes. Tantos sonhos, tanta paz, tanta fé no olhar dessa gente. Até ao bom Jesus eu vou subir, vou olhar a cidade do Sameiro, me reconstruir. Vou pelas ruas, vou ouvindo sons que só em Braga descobri. Até ao bom Jesus eu vou subir, vou olhar a cidade do Sameiro, me reconstruir. Vou pelas ruas, vou ouvindo sons que só em Braga descobri.